Joining me now is Katrin Hangemann. She is the European Union Deputy Ambassador to Kenya. Katrin, welcome to Double O Direct.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we've met at like 30 different receptions.
And we never talked.
We never talked.
Yeah.
I know, right? But now this is happening, and I'm so happy.
I'm happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, because we've never actually talked.
All right. Yes, my name is Katrin. I'm the Deputy Ambassador to Kenya here for 3.5 years already.
Yes.
So I came before COVID, had half a year before we all went into lockdown.
Yes.
Stayed here through the entire time, really enjoyed myself the entire time. Before that, I've been in Botswana, posted to Botswana for 4 years. Other than that, mostly in Brussels. I'm an astronomer by trade.
Oh my God! Oh my God! I am totally in love with that. You heard the earlier conversation I was having with the traveling telescope, and the fact that for me, had things gone differently, I'd have been an astrophysicist. So you studied astronomy?
I studied astronomy and physics.
Oh!
There we go. We're soulmates.
We so are. Continue. Oh wow.
So, yes. So from astronomy, I somehow veered into
all the stars.
All the stars.
Oh, the
blue flag. Yes.
Yes.
But then veered off to diplomacy.
Yes.
And then started in Brussels for a while. Worked in crisis management with some of the really troubled countries in this world. Also did a little bit of human resources. Learning a little bit sort of how does an embassy function, etc. And then went out to Botswana. Really enjoyed my time there, but it was a bit too quiet. I mean, if you are doing political reporting, there was a bit too little happening in Botswana.
Yes.
So then coming to Kenya, I really got off to a great start. There's so much happening in Kenya.
Yes.
It's so politically active, but also otherwise we are doing so much in Kenya. So there's so many projects that we have to open to showcase, etc. And then there's so much, going on all the time. So it was great.
I was amazed that your ambassador, when she said that the EU is actually one of the single largest donors or partners or supporters of Kenya.
Yes.
Do you have any statistics on that? Do you have any figures on how much or the scope of the EU participation with regards to so many things? There's education, there's development, there's health. You know, there's so many areas in which the EU is engaging in Kenya on a public and private sector perspective. Just to give a little bit of background. We're streaming live on the homepage standardmedia.co.ke. I'm Olivia Otieno. Coming up, music, golden hits, late 70s, early 80s, golden era of music. I'm going to tell you that. But we're discussing the EU Business Forum, the European Union Kenya Business Forum. You were telling me that there's quite some investment that the EU has in this country.
Yes. So, for example, on development cooperation, 500 million in 4 years.
And we're talking euros, we're not talking Kenya shillings.
And we also have, on top of that, we have the European Investment Bank, very active here in Kenya.
Yes.
There I only have the figures for the total since 1976 when engagement started, and there was 3 billion euros.
3 billion euros,
Yes.
That's quite some engagement.
Yes.
So with regards to this EU Business Forum, how did that come about?
That came about because we are seeing Kenya really as moving from a country that we mainly focus on development aid to go more towards trade. And trade we have a lot of trade already with Kenya, but it's a bit one-sided.
Yes.
And we really want to see Kenya invest more companies from Europe coming here, but also more of the trade going to Kenya. And this then was one of the main pillars that we had in the newly created EU-Kenya Strategic Dialogue.
Yes.
So one of the main pillars is trade and investment.
Yes.
And within that pillar, this is one of the main deliverables.
Yes.
To really say we are committed to continue in Kenya, to invest in Kenya, but also to make sure that Kenya has an export market in the EU. We're 27 countries. With all the same rules for getting your stuff into the country. So if you manage to export into France, you're also exporting to all of the other countries. You have no more hassle with any of the other countries. So that was the aim, is to try to incentivize both European companies to come here to see what more can we do in Kenya, but also to help Kenyan companies that maybe have a little bit of difficulties in figuring out how to get their products to Europe, to make that step and have more investment there.
You talked about the trade being a little bit one-sided. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, you have a few export avenues here. I mean, we all know about horticulture, flowers coming to Europe, agricultural products more generally.
Yes.
But often there's the question of having more of a value chain addition in before it gets to the markets.
Yes.
So that's one area, is to really intensify in the areas where we already are, to see whether you don't just
bring raw materials,
but you bring sort of ready-made products, and that may require then looking at how these products get to the European market. But then there's also the question of expanding into other areas. There are sort of new markets that I think would be quite interesting. We have a digital market. We have the green and sustainable development areas, where I think that's where the future is. And therefore, can we make sure that Kenya doesn't lag behind in that? And in many areas, you're not lagging behind, you're actually in front of us. We always cite M-Pesa as one of the examples, but my parents are always amazed when they see me paying salaries for my staff, even while I'm in Germany, just by a little click of the phone. So can we make sure that we learn as Europeans from what Kenya is already doing, and then invest in that? Can we make sure that those things come to Europe? So it's both intensifying what's already there and expanding into other areas.
SpiceFM.